Hi, my name is Lena Moeller and I'm a 3D printing master at the Invention Studio. Today we're going to be going through the provisional PI checklist to become a PI. So the first step under general info says to locate each type of 3D printer in the Invention Studio. Right here we have one of our BambuLab X1Es. These are our fleet printers, so these you will see on the main 3D printing shelf when they get implemented. Then we have the Formlabs 3s and 3Ls. Those are our resin printers located in the middle of Studio with the orange hoods. They are used for very detailed prints and specific material prints. Then we will have our Ultimaker S3s. They are going to be used for composite materials and specialty materials. And they will be located on a shelf near the front desk. Then we have the S5s. Those are our larger printers that will be located on the shelf with the BambuLabs printers, with the main fleet printers. Then we have the Markforged Mark II, which prints with carbon fiber inlays, and that is great for aerospace type parts and basically things that need to be really strong but also really light. That is also located by the front desk. And we will be adding the Fuse 1 Plus to our fleet soon, and that will be located in a closet outside of the Invention Studio. Question 2 on the checklist says explain the difference between FDM, SLA, and SLS printing. So FDM stands for fused deposition modeling, and so that is our filament method. So that's what our fleet printers use. It's taking that filament and melting it into a specific pattern. You can remember that F for filament, even though it doesn't technically stand for filament. SLA is stereolithography printing, and that is resin printing. So it's using a liquid plastic and it is curing it with UV light into a specific shape. Our Formlabs printers are an example of those. SLS stands for selective laser sintering, and that is a powder printer. The Fuse 1 Plus is an example of that. It's using a laser to actually melt that powder into specific patterns to create your part. Question 3 says, what parts cannot be printed at the Invention Studio? When should you reject someone's print? And what do you do if someone refuses to let their print be rejected? So things that cannot be printed at the Invention Studio, the first one is basic shapes. So we don't want to allow anything that can be easily created with another method or purchased. So for example, a cylinder with a hole through the middle, that's just a piece of pipe or tubing, and we recommend people go out and buy PVC pipe. Something like a box or a gear can easily be laser cut, the sides can be pieced together. The second thing is anything NSFW. So if it's not safe for work, it's also not safe for school. We are an educational makerspace, so we don't allow anything like that. Including in that is no weapons. So anything, if it looks like, if you painted it, if a normal person would be able to easily mistake it for a real weapon, we don't allow it. For example, some cosplay parts from something like Valorant or CSGO, we would not allow. But I mean, something like the Master Sword from Zelda, nobody's going to really think that's a real weapon, so that's something we'd allow. If you're trying to refuse somebody's print and they won't allow it to be refused, or somebody's getting belligerent or something like that, please just have them contact the masters. Or if you're ever unsure of anything, please just contact the masters and hopefully they'll be able to help you. So moving on to the Bambus themselves. The first question asks you to describe the advantages of this series of printers. These printers are much faster than most conventional printers, so we're able to push out a lot more prints in a shorter amount of time. They also use 1.75 millimeter filament, which is the modern standard for the diameter of filament, meaning the filament is much easier to come by. They also have this unit here, the AMS, which means they can use up to 4 different materials in the same print. As for what the AMS is, it stands for Automatic Material System, which means it's able to change between all 4 of these filaments in the same print without stopping. Then the next question asks, what type of material should not go into the AMS? So we absolutely allow no flexible materials in the AMS because it will get stuck. This kind of rolls that filament back and it won't load properly if it's flexible like TPU. We also don't allow cardboard spools in the AMS because there are rollers in here and it'll wear down on that cardboard and it'll have little lumps in it and it won't spool back properly. The next part of the checklist asks you to describe how the AMS works. So when we open the hood in here, you will see that there are 4 different spots for filament spools in here. They run on these little rollers here at the back that'll move them, and with these extruders here at the front. These little yellow pieces will pull the filament down into the printer. There are 4 Bowden tubes under here, little tubes that the filament will travel through, and they will get placed into this central tube right here. This central Bowden tube comes down and into the cutter. This filament cutter, when the Bambu says it's done with that certain roll of filament, it will cut it off. The part that's been cut off will go out into the extruder, and the rest will get retracted back into the printer. The extruded pieces will come out of the back here in little spools, and then it will start on its next filament color. Now you need to demonstrate how to load and unload filament from the BambuLabs printers. So this is the home page for this software, and you're going to go to this menu here. You're going to go over to filament, and you're going to select which roll you want to unload. You can just tap between the rolls here. I want to unload this first one, so I'm just going to tap unload. So all it's going to do is heat the nozzle. It's going to slice the filament in the back of the printer in that slicing thing that I showed before, and then it's going to pull this back, and I'll be able to take it out of the printer. Now that the filament has been fully pulled back, we can open up the AMS and gently pull the filament out of the extruder and pull this up and out. So then to reload the filament, we're just going to put it back in, make sure it's sitting properly on these rollers, it's nice and stable. We're going to make sure that that slot is selected. We're going to come down here, we're going to push down a little bit here, push this back into the roll, and stick the filament down in there, and then let go, and it'll automatically pull it. You need to close the lid so that it properly rotates, and the AMS now recognizes it. If you want to push the filament all the way down to the extruder, you're going to have to hit load. Load will go through a very similar process as the unload, just in reverse, obviously, and pull it all the way down to the extruder. If this doesn't recognize your filament correctly, say you're using PETG and it thinks it's PLA, all you need to do is select this little pencil here and change what kind of filament it is. So, for example, I could change it to a specific brand, a specific material, and a specific color. The color is important so that the auto refill system can work. On the main menu, there is this auto refill button here. It says when the current material runs out, the printer will continue to print in the following order. So basically this means that if the AMS recognizes that 2 or more rolls in it are exactly the same material and color, it'll continue your print when one of them runs out. So that means for unused spools or partially used spools that they get fully used up, meaning we should not be throwing away any filament that's left on the rolls. It should all get used up by the AMS. This also means that all filament should be stored in the AMS at all times. Partially used spools will always live inside of the AMS from now on. So the reason for that is when spools get wet, they get brittle, which means they break easier, and that can be a problem for the AMS. Inside the AMS, that's a dry environment because it has desiccant in there. So basically, there should be no partially used spools on the table, nothing like that. Then you might think, well, when can we remove spools from the AMS? So obviously, if the printer is not printing, feel free to pull out of spool. However, if it is printing and you'd still like to grab one of those spools, the very first thing you need to check if this is a multi-material print. A multi-material print will have a label on the front of the printer that you will be able to clearly see, so you won't unload filament from that because you don't know which spools it's using. If it's a single color print, then all you need to do is determine which spool it is actually printing with, which one is all the way loaded to the extruder. And then all you need to do is once you figure out that, you're not allowed to take that one. You can take any of the other ones. So right now, this spool is not loaded all the way to the extruder, which means I can take it out. All you need to do to take it out, if it's not loaded all the way, is just push down on the white thing and pull it out. And then your spool comes right out. Regarding build plates for these printers, the style of build plate we use is the textured PEI plate. It is written on the side of the printer, so you'll be able to see that. As for glue on the build plate, this is where you can see that name there. Sometimes prints struggle to stick to these build plates, so then you just take a glue stick and you would rub it all over where it is going to print. Then it'll help prints stick, especially prints that are very large and wide. They might start to peel up in the corners, or prints that are very tall and skinny, they start to try to peel off the build plate. When they get towards the top of the print, there's a lot of vibration. Then, if there is too much glue on the build plate, sometimes that can cause problems for auto leveling and some sort of problem. It can actually cause problems with sticking as well, and you'll want to wash it off. How you wash it off is you're just going to take this to the sink, warm water, no soap, no nothing, just wipe it off with your hands under the warm water. The glue should actually turn back to being purple, so you'll be able to see where it is. So, to place the build plate back into the printer, all you're going to do, there are some guides in the back to help you. You're just going to slide it at an angle all the way to the back and let it fall. It is magnetic, so it'll be very easy to use. Then, for marking printers down, we have these nice handy whiteboards here underneath the printers that shows their status. If a printer is good, this whiteboard will be down and it will say good. When marking a printer down, first of all, make sure that it absolutely cannot be printed on anymore. That's the only reason that you should ever have to mark a printer down, is if it literally will not print anything. Just because the print's not sticking to the build plate doesn't mean you need to mark it down. When you do mark it down, we have these handy dandy little whiteboards here that have various error messages on them. Please highlight which error you're experiencing, and if there's not one on here, please just write it up here and then change the status to bad. If you have extra notes or something about why it's down or what it's doing, please write them up here and then take the whiteboard and prop it up in front of the printer where you can easily see the bad, so that everybody knows that they should not send prints to that printer.